grade rounding best practices video. In this video, we will share what one can expect to see and hear as they visit mathematics classrooms. Here's a little rounding humor for you. Makes you think about the connections to vocabulary we can make for our students and what misconceptions they might have with this new benchmark. This unit of study will encompass the following key learning goals. I can identify the two tens in between which a number lies using number lines and hundreds charts. I can use place value and number lines to round numbers from 0 to 100 to the nearest 10. I can understand that rounding is a process that produces a number with a similar value that is less precise but easier to use. These goals can also be found on the STEMscopes parent letter. What should we see happening in the classroom to help students achieve these goals? Here we see a video of a student modeling rounding strategies to the nearest 10 using counters. The number they are trying to round is 13. By using the red sides and the yellow sides of the counters, students can determine the distance to determine which 10 13 is nearest to. Another strategy we see utilized is the hundreds chart. Students can use the hundreds chart to determine what two multiples of 10 a number is in between. And finally, we see a student using a number line to model rounding to the nearest 10. These strategies help students work through the CRA model as they utilize concrete, representation, and abstract depictions to round numbers. Teachers can facilitate a discussion to make connections between representations by asking students to share multiple strategies. As you can see, there's an MTR poster on the slide. So what MTRs align with this scope? MTR 4, engage in discussions that reflect on the mathematical thinking of self and others. MTR 5, students use patterns and structure to help understand and connect mathematical concepts. Students recognize patterns in the structure of base 10 numbers. Students use their knowledge of the base 10 system to recognize and utilize the repeated process of bundling groups of 10 and making sense of the rounding process. With the association of distance depicted in the Explore activity, students can associate rounding with real-world context. This applies to MTR 7. Students should be invited to have math chats to discuss their learning. The types of questions teachers choose will help dictate the direction of the student conversations. These example questions can be found in the math chat section of STEMscopes, as well as the fundamental questions section. These questions provide opportunities for students to explain their reasoning, which connect to the MTRs. How are the number paths on the cards and the number lines similar? How are they different? What do you notice about the rounded numbers? How can they be useful? How can you find the two tens a number is between? What process did you use to round to the nearest 10? How did you know whether to round up or down? As students explore rounding numbers, we should hear students and teachers utilizing correct mathematical vocabulary. Here's a list of some vocabulary we would expect to hear in this unit. These words can be found on STEMscopes parent letter as well. Throughout this unit of study, we should see multiple opportunities for students to demonstrate their knowledge and understanding. This could include student journals, exit tickets during the Explore, as well as standards-based assessment tasks, and fluency builders with rounding games to practice. These could provide teachers with an informal assessment. These activities can demonstrate MTRs 4 and 5 as well. As we visit classrooms, we can ask students questions to gauge their understanding of the current content. Here we see some questions we can ask students. Additional questions can be found on mathsmarts.com, which can be found by clicking on the benchmark link on the Year at a Glance. We want students to continue learning at home. Here, students can play some games on the tic-tac-toe board. This board can be found on the parent letter. Here's an example of rounding around the home. Ask your child to find examples at home or while out with you of times you might need to round in everyday life. This is another example of MTR 7. Another activity is number line rounding, where students will use their knowledge of the base 10 system to round to the nearest 10. So why is this so important? Rounding connects to developing number sense, as well as our previous benchmark with plotting and comparing. Students can utilize this strategy for estimation as well. Well, that's all for now. See you in the next video. Don't get rounded up.